where you can have the next slide on the bottom right or something like that?
I don't know. Oh, it might be the presenter view or something.
Yeah, Microsoft intern.
This is a slides. This is a Google Slides.
Okay. Never mind.
So our agenda, we have an agenda. Well, first we're going to go with our info. We're going to then go to incoming events, then beats on some of those things.
You guys are so silly all sitting up here. Not the social stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is GDSC? GDSC is Google Development Student Club, in which we are a university-based community group for students interested in Google technology and programming. By joining GDSC, students build their professional and personal networks, get access to Google development resources, and work together to build solutions in local problems in peer-to-peer learning environments. Now, our GDSC leadership, we have Maddie, our president, Sadie, our vice president, she's not currently here, Kim, our secretary, and our senior advisor, Adam.
He's graduated.
Then we have Michael, who is our outreach, our treasurer, Tristan, over here, Trina, who is our public relation, and our workshop, Adita. I don't know, yeah.
You don't know him?
No, I think we met him.
He was at our meeting, our planning meeting.
I know, I saw him once. I didn't talk to him. Anyways, we have Corbin, who is our webmaster. Then we have another webmaster, Caitlin. We have me, who is the historian. We have Hudson, who's our multimedia. Whoa!
That's everybody.
So this is our official GDSC platform, in which you can join. Do you have a link to it? No.
I'll share the slides.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll share the slides so you can join later. So when you join the GDSC platform, sign in with your Google email, and then fill out the form, what it tells you to do, and then go back to the LSU page and click to join. In which then you'll be provided with, in your emails, upcoming events, and you can RSVP for food and swag and instant raffles. We also send feedback surveys to improve on our future events. Also, you can join our Kaya link, in which we also send our events to.
And emails.
And our newsletter, which is sent through the Tiger link, so you can see our week.
It's not through the Heidegger
It's
link.
not?
No, it's just our newsletter.
Oh, dang. Our newsletter, which is just sent, and it gives you weekly updates on what our group is going to do and information about social media and other announcements, like ahead of time. And then our Discord, which is our main form of our communication, is the best way we communicate with members. We announce weekly and sometimes even daily. We recommend joining and growing our community. So these are the links. Please join.
Should we put some background music?
Nah, silence is good.
Next week, we're going to have a Intro to Python workshop. And then the week after, or two after that, we're going to have a UI UX workshop where we cover UI UX fundamentals and Figma, the free software program that you can use to create mockups. Then we're going to go over object detection, which is very cool and different. And then we'll have a professional development workshop in March where we'll go over how to make a LinkedIn, how to spice up your resume, and how to network, which is kind of late because that'll be after the career fair, but this will be just to help people who are going to start their job hunting in June and July for the next summer. And then afterwards in April, we'll end it off with another Web Dev Week, which this will be different because it'll be 1 week and there will be consecutive days of workshops. So, and they'll hopefully be longer and more informative to follow along. And we also want to know what you guys want out of GDC, since this is a club for the people and we're here to support your education and career growth and all that stuff. So don't forget to let us know. You can always email us, DM us on Discord, all that jazz. So, and then I wanted to go over the LeetCode Study Jams, which we've already started one on Monday. And so the LeetCode Study Jams are where we just work on a LeetCode problem together, because sometimes it can be difficult to work on them on your own when you're in your room, you know, and you don't really feel like studying, but it's very important. So we want to create that environment for you guys where you feel feel more motivated to work on it because it's a set time and place to just do it. And it's very important to do it because it's used in technical interviews, and it's how you get to the next step in the interview process and closer to getting your internship or job. So we'll have the introduction, you guys can study quietly, try to solve on your own, then we'll walk you through it, you can share your answers, and then we'll share the algorithm and the solution. But at the moment, we are still working on it, and it's a new concept, so you guys can always give feedback when you attend them so that we can work to improve them to make them more beneficial to y'all. And right now they are alternating, so this week it was on Monday, next week it'll be on Tuesday, and so on. It'll always be in the same room at the same time though. And we'll send announcements about what problem it'll be and when it will be, so you guys don't have to keep up with that. What?
We should ask them about Tuesday week if they'd rather.
So we're here to provide resources for you that you might not know about. And one of the biggest things is the EBR library card, which if you have a library card, you can access their digital resources. And my favorite one is Udemy. And with Udemy, it's this online platform with a lot of video courses that you can follow, and you can learn a lot of different skills through there. For example, I use Udemy to learn how to use Figma, to learn about UI UX, and that's how I got my first internship as UI UX designer. And then I also used it to learn front end, JavaScript, React, and right now I'm learning it to use Node.js. And these courses are up to you. You can pace yourself on your own, and there's a lot of different teachers on there. So if you don't like one course, you can always go on to a different one. And they can be very short or very long depending on how extensive you want. But you can also just, out of like a 40-hour course, only do 20 hours of what you think is the most important to you. So definitely go and get a library card if you don't already have one. And then the reason why you should self-study as a CS major, especially if you're a freshman and a sophomore, is because you might have more free time compared to later on when you have to work on projects and stuff. And it's a great time for you to explore the different topics in CS, especially like if you're, because I'm a software engineer concentration. So software engineer, there's front end, there's back end, there's mobile development, and there's a lot of different categories even in those areas. So it's good to get a feel for all the different things so that you keep your passion up, because 1350, 1351, it can get a little boring and you might be wondering, oh, why am I a CS major? It's so boring. But you don't want to get bored, because sometimes people start off majoring in CS because they're interested in the money or whatever, but you want to have a passion for it so that you can continue learning and developing so that the chances of making money is higher, I guess, and so that you don't get burnt out. Anyways, so self-study is important because CS is always evolving, and there's always new technology being developed. So you kind of want to stay on top of it. And by growing these skills now, you'll have the opportunity to continue learning as you go. For example, internships don't tell you what you're going to be using and what project you'll be working on. But if you already built skills that you are confident in, it's easy for you to then transfer those skills and your knowledge of learning to other areas, so that when they give you a new language, you're not surprised by it and you don't have to take longer to learn it. And it's also important to self-study because your resume and someone else's resume can look very similar, but just by having a few more technologies or frameworks on your resume will make you stand out, especially if you've built projects using those tools, because then you can talk about them during your interviews and when you're networking and you're introducing yourself. You can say, hey, I worked on this website and it does this really cool thing that you're passionate about. They will notice that and they will remember you, versus the person who just said, yeah, I worked on a class project. And yeah, so definitely self-study. You'll also build your confidence as a software engineer as you learn and make mistakes and run into bugs, and then you debug them, and then you will be more confident in your coding skills. And then I will share the slides so you can have access to these different resources. I have articles and newsletters, then I have podcasts and YouTube channels, and then you guys can explore that later on. So I mentioned in my announcement that I would talk about how I got this internship for the summer, and it's kind of embarrassing. But from my experience, before this, I started off as a UI UX design intern at Vigilis/Crimer, which is a local company here in Baton Rouge. And I was there for since September 2021. And afterwards, the summer after that, I was lucky to get another internship as a web development intern at BBP, which is another local company. It's right across Dixie Landing. And I worked there for the summer, last summer. So that's what I had on my resume. I had those 2 internships. And then I also had a couple projects that I worked on. I had a simple HTML, CSS project. I had a React project for an online store, but it didn't work. You know, it's kind of embarrassing. And I had another project, a React Native mobile app project. And then I had this as my involvement, and I also had another club as my involvement. And another thing on my resume that might have made me stand out that most people don't really mention is having an interest section. So things that you like to do or your hobbies. For me, I had weightlifting, and I had eating food, and my cat, and making jewelry, and arts and crafts, and stuff like that. So it's just things that make you stand out as a person. So my reasoning for including this is when a recruiter, whoever's looking at your resume, sees it, they'll go through all of the basic info that everyone has, and then they'll see something that makes you unique and stand out as a person. Like, you're not only a student or a software engineer or a programmer or whatever, but you're also a person who enjoys doing XYZ. And if you're showing this resume in person, you might be able to talk about it if they have similar interests to you and have a longer conversation that makes you more memorable when you're talking about something that you're interested in, and then later they'll think about you and they're like, oh, we had that really nice conversation. So anyways, and then afterwards, for applying, I only cold applied, which means that I only submitted an application. But there are cases where people will also look up the recruiter if they can on LinkedIn, Microsoft Recruiter, something like that, and then send a cold request where it's just you drop a message saying, hey, I just applied, this is who I am, I'm looking forward to, you know, the opportunity or whatever. And you can also send emails. People also send, if they can find emails, they'll send emails too, or they'll send emails to like recruiter at Microsoft or whatever. But I didn't do any of that, so. And then as for the interview experience, which is what some people ask sometimes, is that for me, I had 2 45-minute long interviews, and then my interview consisted of 10 to 15 minutes of behavioral, which behavioral is just tell me about yourself, and then tell me about a time when you did XYZ, and so on. So that was 10, 15 minutes, and then 30 minutes of that was the coding part, where I was given a LeetCode question. These were questions that you could find on LeetCode. And then after that, they gave me 5 minutes to ask any questions, which is very important. So for the behavioral, in terms of how to prepare for behavioral, I would really recommend doing mock interviews, just going over it with your friend, have them ask you questions about your resume, what's on your resume, you should know it. Because sometimes the interview will be like, oh, I see that you've listed this project. What did you use to build a project with? Oh, or tell me what your favorite project is on your resume. Or I see that you have this this internship experience. Can you tell me more about what you worked on? Stuff like that. And you really want to know your resume so that you can answer these questions and not get blindsided and caught off guard. And then for me, they would ask me questions, and then so they said, tell me about yourself. I gave them my little spiel. Then they said, oh, so, you know, if I mentioned that I'm the president of GDC, they'll be like, why are you the president of GDC? Why do you join the club or whatever? Then I talk more about that. And then afterwards, they'll give the scenarios. Tell me about a time when you had internal conflict with the team or something like that. Those are questions that you can find online. I definitely recommend making a story toolbox, which is where you have a document with just generic concepts like teamwork, collaboration, leadership, and you list all of your experiences. And sometimes you might not have these experiences yet because you're not a part of any leadership roles or you haven't been on a team, and that's okay. This is kind of unethical, but maybe sometimes you can write a story and just lie. And I'm just trying to support you guys, okay? If you don't have that experience, make one up and just know it by heart. So if they ask you more questions about it, you know your story. What?
I just wanted to mention to the class that you might have actually some good stories. It's just that you forgot about them. So I have a little list on my phone of cool little stories, or at least like little overviews of the cool little stories. And I was doing this interview event with Shell as part of SACE, plugging SACE, but I'm just like mentioning that I went a bit overboard learning C for a project, or I was able to pull people together for a project. That's already like an interesting enough story you can tell to recruiters. It doesn't have to be a huge research story or something.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
Sure, like everybody here is a student, so like everybody has some kind of experience where they're working on like a group paper or writing a presentation. Like I'm sure we all had to do that at least in high school, if not like in college or at any point. So we all have those stories very deep down within ourselves. So if you like start, I guess you probably won't be able to remember the past ones, but it would be very helpful, like Maddie said, and what I don't know your name, sorry.
Paul.
Paul. So what Paul said, just like keep a note on the stuff that you're doing now. It could be small, it could be big.
Yes, and another thing to keep track of is your achievement. I also recommend having an achievement doc that you start now. Something like you got an A on exam, you do well in your labs. Just keep a running track of all the things that you've achieved, because those help to build up your confidence. So you should look over them and just remind yourself like, hey, I'm that person, like that's me. And this is very important to keep going on with when you're in your internships and later in your jobs, because if you remember all your achievements, here's the thing. You're going to be working on projects and your manager's not going to know every single thing that you contributed. So you're going to want to make sure, hey, I fixed X amount of bugs, I pushed this many lines of code, I've contributed this to the project, right? You want to keep track of this so that when you have those one-on-one with your manager, you want to bring that up with them and tell them, hey, so this week I've accomplished XYZ on the task that was assigned to me. And then they'll be like, wow, you're doing really great, because they're not there sitting next to you seeing everything you're doing. So you want to remind them so that they'll realize like this intern is working hard and I want to give them a return offer. Definitely have that achievement doc and just keep it up during the semester and keep it up during the summer. Even something as simple as like, I did 1 leak code this week. That's an achievement, write that down, Just make yourself feel good and remember that all your little efforts are going to turn into like a huge accomplishment. So yeah, story, toolbox, just look up software engineer behavioral questions and then just try to copy and paste that and then write your stories. You can put them into the STAR format if you want to, but definitely mock interview with someone, have someone pretend to be the interviewer, let them have your resume, give them a list of generic questions and just answer them. And you want to be very succinct, so that's why you have to use the STAR format, and you don't want to take too long. But you want to give them as much information as possible. And in my case, if you have 2 different interviewers, you don't want to tell them the same story. So if they ask you similar questions that you can use one story to answer both of them, I recommend not to do that, because later they will discuss with each other about you as a person, and you want to give them different things so that when they're saying, hey, she told me this, she told me that she's XYZ, and the other person says, yeah, she told me that too. You don't have much to say about you. But if you give them different things to talk about, then they'll see the qualities of you more fully as a person. So if you have the opportunity to have multiple interviewers, definitely say more different things about you, because it will turn into like one what?
I was gonna add on. So, what I learned in the past week was that during interviews, whenever you're like making eye contact with them, don't make too much eye contact, but like keep eye contact. But whenever you think they aren't writing, they are. They're keeping detail about everything you said to them, so it's good to have enough detail. So be as detailed as possible, and then keep in mind that they are keeping track of everything that you're telling them. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely only highlight the best qualities of you that you can. For me, mine was virtual, so I just looked at the camera the whole time. Or I looked around the camera, but like I wasn't looking away or anything. And then for the coding interview and how to prepare for that, you just have to do your lead codes and you have to know how to talk them through, because you can solve it and you can solve it in 5 minutes, but that doesn't accomplish anything if you didn't say a single word while you're coding it up, because they want to hear your thought process. They want to know what you're thinking to get to the solution, the algorithm that's in your head. So definitely practice lead coding, but also just practice walking through it. So once you code it up, you're going to just talk to yourself. So I'm going to get the solution by first looping over the array and getting this value. With this value, I will then do this. And then the most important thing is to talk about the time and space complexity and why that is so. So if the time and space complexity is O of n. Why is it O of n? It's O of n because I have to go over the array size. So the array size is n, so it's O of n. Or it's space complexity O of n because I have to create a hash map, and the hash map size is dependent on the inputs. Or it's O of 1 because I'm always just going to have 2 variables, something like that. You definitely want to mention that. You don't want them to probe you for it. So just at the end, just make sure you know why it is what it is. And then as for asking questions, this is more for you, but the questions you ask will also kind of reflect who you are, what your values are. My question was just very simple though. It's just, mine was really silly, but mine was, so do you like being an interviewer? Because when you're a software engineer at a company, you can be chosen to interview people. And so that's just a choice that you can make. And I was just curious. But another one was something like, what do you like most about working here? Very generic, of course.
To add on, so at the very end of the interview, whenever you're done answering their questions, they're like she said, they're gonna be like, "Do you have any more questions for us?" Always have something to ask them. They're looking to see if you're like interested, right? So if you have any questions for them, just say it. And even after those questions, maybe ask for their email as a thank you note, to write a thank you note in your email later that night or the next day. Be like, hey, I appreciate you like interviewing me. I'm really interested in this job. Or like if you're in person, then you can always be like, hey, so thank you so much for your time. I always say that. And then be like, I'm really interested in this position. Please keep in touch with me and whatnot.
Yeah. And that's my whole interview experience. And afterwards, you can follow up with them. And for me, I was really lucky because it was 2 weeks, they'll let me know, but I actually got the offer within 3 days of my interview. I did it on Wednesday and I got it on Friday. I got really lucky. I know. That's everything. If you have any more questions, just feel free to DM me. I'm not scary.
So how many of you are freshmen? Have y'all gone to the career expo before? Yeah. So the biggest advice I would give y'all is to like, whenever you have the time or the opportunity to, always go to networking events and career fair expos. It's good practice. First of all, you're not really expected to like get an internship as a freshman, you know, because you haven't necessarily developed the skills yet. But if you already have, that's good. But like, you're not really expected to find an internship so early. So just go to those career fairs. Hopefully it's the same recruiter every year. So they'll be like, oh, this was the freshman from last year. Maybe they'll have like more skills and more experience on their resumes. So just go there, practice talking to people, and then maybe you'll get lucky.
Not to get lucky. That is so sad. Oh, I just remembered. Oh, yes.
Do you guys think it's kind of late for internships right now, especially in like computer science? 'Cause I heard it was like, what's it like, fall was kind of like the time for internships.
I would never say it's too late, but only because for me, last summer, my internship, I got that in May or June when they reached out to me, and I was like, whoa. Because towards the end of the semester, I was like, oh my God, I didn't get a single internship. It's over for me, something like that, right? But they reached out to me, and I forgot to mention this, but the biggest thing for this internship was the manager saw my resume on Handshake. So definitely have your resume on Handshake. I thought it was useless, but it's actually not, because local companies are looking at Handshake apparently. And they asked their team of interns, hey, do you guys know this person? Do you know Maddie or whatever? And someone, my friend actually works there, so she said, yeah, I know her. And someone else also noticed my name and didn't know me personally, but said that I was cool. So definitely, if you put yourself out there, if you network with other students, they can put in a good word for you at their companies. And that's how I got that internship experience, because I got noticed, and then I had people talking about me. So networking is super important and goes really far. Always think about who you're talking to. But if you're friends, of course, like, that's chill. But if you're talking to people at these networking events, these companies, if you're going to, like, SACE has a bunch of, like, they have the Chevron thing, Shell, Dow, they had all these companies come volunteer and to sponsor the events. When you're talking to these people, always make sure you know your brand and who you are as a person and what you want them to take away to remember you as. But networking is very, very important, not just building your skills, but also being able to talk to people and talk about yourself.
LinkedIn too.
LinkedIn.
If you don't have a LinkedIn yet, make sure to make one and start connecting with people on there. Start like decorating your whole like profile. It's really important. A recruiter actually told me that it's really good to have the LinkedIn one.
I'm listening. I'm
It's
listening.
really good to have a LinkedIn link on your resume, because if the recruiter finds interest in you, they can go search your name up on LinkedIn and then do like more background research on what you've done so far and who you are as a person.
You can also get LinkedIn Premium
Oh,
for free.
We are not.
oh, for free?
On like I think like the student Prime or something like that. There's a way you can do it. I forgot how to do it.
Oh
But
my
I'm just letting y'all know you can get it free for like 6 months.
I gotta
It's
write that
it's
down.
very expensive, so it's a very good offer.
It's like $20 a month.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But
Yes.
It also comes, LinkedIn Premium also comes free if you get the library thing.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
really, with a library card?
What library thing?
Library card. If you get a library card here at I think EBR Fish.
Yeah, MBR.
I'm dying.
There's a main library like down Goodwood.
I didn't
So if you get a
know.
library card,
Me.
yeah, it allows you to
know
get a lot of resources. So make sure to go to the library and
I
sign up.
love all my books.
I'll bring you, okay?
Yeah, please.
If you don't like Udemy, there's also LinkedIn Learning that you have access to via premium.
Yeah, they have other resources, not just Udemy. They have something else too, but I just like the UI of Udemy better. But they have a lot of different resources. Agree?
Yeah, going back on what I'm sorry, what's your name? Trenton? All right, nice to meet you, Trenton. But yeah, so going back what you're saying, it's really like never late to start applying to internships. It could be like in the dead of winter or like spring. Like there's always like job postings on LinkedIn or on recruiting like the careers websites of certain companies. So it's never too late. You can always look at it. Now, they might not be hiring at that very specific moment. But yeah.
I will say, if you guys are wondering when recruiting starts, it can start as early as June. That's when I started applying to a lot of places, and it gives you the highest chance if you apply as soon as possible. Because for me, a lot of my internship processes, interview processes that were happening only happened because I had applied so early. For example, JP Morgan Chase, they have a hackathon. I applied July 7th. It opened July 4th or something. And then I got my acceptance email around like August, and that's way before school started. So don't start when school starts. Start before then. Especially even the Microsoft internship, one thing I didn't mention was I applied the day it opened. I didn't apply the hour it opened though, but I applied at like 7 p.m. It probably opened earlier in the day, but I think the sooner you apply, the higher chance you have because they're going to be going through your applications first. But don't feel bad if you haven't applied the day of or the week of even, because they do it in a rolling admission. So they'll go through the processes, they'll interview people, and they'll reject people, and they'll keep looking at applications because Microsoft interviews started in September, and then there's still interviews even in December, and maybe even right now too. So definitely don't feel nervous, but if you want to be on top of it, start looking in July, late June. And
After graduation, you mean? Or the
if you're a
between the two years?
student, start in the summer, like
Okay.
start in the middle of summer. And to get the best prep, start preparing for interviews now so that in June, July, you're not super stressed out about applying and prepping up for interviews. And another thing, I guess later I can share this resource I was using where other students across the US are sharing their processes, they're sharing their progress, and I also shared my process. And you can share, like, in terms of what I'm saying share, is that there's this one Discord channel where you can share that you've applied. And so I lurked in that channel, and whenever a company internship application opened up, a lot of people would post that they applied to that company. So that's how I knew that there were internship applications opening up, because I just saw people replying to it. So I did so too. Another thing that you can also share is that you got an interview or that you got the offer. So for me, I saw other people say that they had an interview scheduled, and you can also see if they got rejected. And this is kind of sad, but people would DM those people who said they got rejected because that meant that they got an interview or something. Sometimes you don't get an interview, but you still get rejected. But I put that I had an offer, and so I think I had 20 people in my DMs asking me about the process because they were also in the process too.
Did you share that Discord link?
I will share the Discord link.
You will now?
Yeah, I've been gatekeeping. No, it's a really nice.
Very cutthroat of you, Maddie.
No,
It's
Discord.
very important to be cutthroat.
She's a gatekeeper too, bro.
Anyways,
Gaslight gate.
thank you guys for listening to me talk. We're gonna play a fun game.
You know, Pictionary?
Pictionary.